Hello everyone, I am Sanjay Gupta. I welcome you on Sanjay Gupta Tech School. So today in our Salesforce Learning Bootcamp, we have one more session. And as you already know, I'm doing mock interview sessions these days. So in continuation to that, so today I will be doing one more uh, like mock interview. And this session is basically based on flow. So in Salesforce, we have a product that is Salesforce Flow, and Salesforce Flow is very powerful tool which usually helps admin as well as developers to implement lots of solutions which are related to business requirement, right? So there is like first of all, I just want to discuss is it related to admin or development, and then I will be starting like picking some questions and will tell you how you can answer to that particular question if it is being asked in the interview, right? So first of all, before starting that thing as well, I just want to welcome everybody, right? Those who are viewing this session live, right? So I hope all the previous sessions which we did related to generic mock interview or admin related session, those were fruitful to you, right? So let's discuss flow related questions now. And if you have any question that you want to ask, so feel free to share that question in the chat so that I can pick those questions in the chat, because you might have faced lots of interviews and you want to know like if this type of question is being asked, so how we can answer that question. So I will try to answer as many questions as I can, because we have 1 hour duration in this live session, right? So if you have any kind of question, please ask that question in the chat, and in between of my questions, I will be picking your questions as well. Okay, so starting with today's mock interview session. So first of all, I want to discuss little bit about flow. So there is a myth like flow is related to admin role or it is related to development role. So first I want to talk something on this, right? So we have two powerful roles. One is Salesforce admin and another one is Salesforce developer, right? So Salesforce admin is basically this role basically focused on low code development, right? So where you don't need to do any coding stuff, you just will be doing all the implementation with the help of point and click. So if we say like you want to create objects, you want to create field, you want to create some approval process, if you want to create some validation rule, so to accomplish those kind of requirements we need an admin, right? But in some of the organizations, admin and dev roles are like combined. So there can be a developer who might be doing all these implementations as well, because these are config related implementation and this comes under the development part, right? So flow is also part of this configuration, right? So if you are implementing any flow, it means you are doing some development, right? So if you are working as an admin, so then also you might be implementing some flows. And if you are working as a developer, so there might be chances you are building some complex flows to accomplish particular business requirement, right? So it can be part of any role. And in most of the companies, like developers nowadays are implementing solutions with the help of flow builder, right? Because flow builder is very powerful and it is having lots of flows. Like you can implement different types of flows, those are available with this particular tool, right? So don't get confused like is it related to admin or development. It is related to both the roles. So whenever there is a requirement and you need to implement a solution, so no matter on which particular role you are working, it is admin or developer, you have to implement solutions with the help of flows, right? So this was the basic explanation that I wanted to give you before starting some Q&As, right? And just want to iterate again if new folks have joined. So if you have any question related to flow that you want to ask to me, so feel free to share your question in the chat, right? I would be happy to answer your questions, right? Okay, so starting with a question and answer. So I want to pick first question that is related to process automation. So in any interview, like interviewer can ask like, what do you understand by process automation, right? So process automation basically means if you have any requirement, right, and you want to perform that requirement automatically, maybe like if you are creating a record, if you are updating a record, if you are deleting a record, so on those events, if you want to perform any operation, right, so that comes under process automation. And to implement process automation, we need certain tools. So we have workflow rules, we have process builder, we have flow builder, right? Now you might be thinking, in this year we don't have flow build, sorry, we don't have workflow rule, we don't have a process builder. So you are right. If you are thinking so, you are right, because workflow rule and process builders are deprecated now. So we have only one product left with us for process automation, that is flow, right? So if you want to implement any solution that you want to run automatically on record creation, updation and deletion, so we have to implement flow for that particular solution. And we have a type of flow that is known as record triggered flow, so you need to implement that record triggered flow for that purpose. Later in your answer, what you can do, you can add schedule triggered flow as well. Like record triggered flow basically works on the records which you are creating, updating or deleting. Suppose you have lots of millions of records in your org for particular object, and you are not doing any operation like create, edit or delete. Still you want to perform some automation on existing records. So for that purpose, we basically use schedule triggered flow, right? So these are basically part of process automation. So if this type of question is being asked to you, so this way you will be able to answer. Now, if you want to relate some more point to it, so you can say like we have one more feature, but that is related to custom development, which is trigger. Trigger is also part of process automation, right? But it is not a point and click tool. It is basically custom development tool where you need to write Apex code and trigger related syntax you need to write. So we'll be having trigger handler classes, right, which is written in the Apex. So that is also part of process automation. Okay. So I hope this way you are able to understand. Now there is one question from Abhishek. He's asking, is approval process not part of flows? So no, approval process is another like separate automation. Approval process is not part of flows. But if you have implemented any approval process, so that approval process you can call with the help of flows, right? So approval process is also an automation where if you have created any record and you want to submit that record for any other user's approval, so for that purpose you can create approval process, right? But approval process is not part of flow, it is separate. But if you want to call any approval process through flow, so that can be done, right? So this was a good question. There are sometimes little bit confusion regarding this, like approval process and flows. So I hope with this answer you are able to understand that. If you have any other question related to these, so feel free to ask. And I want to make it interactive session so that basis on your question, I can frame my answers as well, right? Now there can be a question like, what is flow builder, right? So interviewer can ask like, what is flow builder actually? So you can say like, it basically provides declarative process automation. So here I use the word declarative. So there are two words, declarative and custom. So whenever I say declarative, it means you are implementing any solution with the help of point and click. So if you are focusing on low code development, so that goes with declarative. If you are focusing on custom, it means it is focusing on the code, right? So flow builder is basically related to declarative development. Okay, so Lightning Flow basically provides this point and click automation tool, which is known as flow builder. So if you want to create a flow, so basically you need to use this tool that is known as flow builder. So Lightning Flow is basically name of the product, and that product provides this flow builder as a tool. Okay, so flow builder is a tool. With the help of flow builder, you will be able to create a flow. and that flow builder comes under Lightning Flow, that is a product. And as I hope you all know, Salesforce provides some updates every year, 3 times. So in those releases, they also provide some updations to the flow. And in recent release, like Salesforce provided one update. So in record triggered flow, earlier we were not able to throw any error message, like we used to throw that error message with the help of trigger, but now that feature is added. So this is a product of Salesforce, and whenever any upgradation is available, so they announce that upgradation in their release that happens 3 times in a year, right? So I hope you now with this answer you are able to understand what is flow builder. Okay, now this next question, which is very simple, and many of the times like interviewer asks like how many types of flows are available in Salesforce. Okay, and that is very important because Salesforce provides a variety of flows nowadays. So you can say we have screen flow, and instead of saying name of the flow, you can just provide one liner explanation as well, like what is the purpose of that particular flow. So if you say first type is screen flow, so you can say if you want to create interactive screens so that we can receive some input from user, and basis on that we can perform certain operations, so we can have screen flow. That is first type, right? Now second type is record triggered flow. So record triggered flow is used if you want to perform any operation upon record creation, updation and deletion. So in that case we can use record triggered flow to perform some automation, right? So always remember all these flows will be performing some automation because it is part of process automation, right? So first was screen flow, second was record triggered flow. Next we have schedule triggered flow. So as I already told you, if you want to perform any operation on the existing records on which you are not doing anything, no create, no update, no delete, right? Records are available in the org and you just want to perform certain operations, maybe daily or weekly basis on your frequency, right? So for that we can use schedule triggered flow. Then we have platform event triggered flow. So in Salesforce, we can generate platform events with the help of custom code, right? So through Apex, if you are initiating any platform event, and basis on that platform event, if you want to run any flow, so for that purpose, you can implement platform event triggered flow. So whenever through code any platform event is generated, so in that case, that particular flow will start its execution. And this flow is basically used very rarely, right? But overall implementation will be same. It just starts its execution whenever any platform event is created or like initiated through the code. Then fifth type we have auto launch flow. So before like record triggered flow, when record triggered flow was not available, this auto launch flow was used a lot, right? Because in absence of record triggered flow, we used to call auto launch flow through process builder. But now since we have record triggered flow, which works on record creation, updation and deletion, so this auto launch flow basically used less. And if you want to call this flow, like you want to create any sub flow, so for that purpose, like you can implement your solution in auto launch flow and then you can call it with the help of record triggered flow, right? So this is the only use case that is available with auto launch flow. And another, like if you want to call it through Apex or you want to call Apex into it, so both ways it is possible, right? So these are 5 major types which are available under types of flows, right? So I hope you are able to understand the solution of the question that I provided you. Okay. So moving on to the next question. Next question can be like, can you explain about flow elements? What all flow elements available? So major flow elements, right? Not all. So you can say like we have some screen action and subflow elements, right? So screen flow, if you're using, we have screen element. If you're using record triggered flow, schedule triggered flow, in that case we don't have screen element, we have action element there, right? Then if we talk about logic, so we have assignment, we have decision, we have loop elements, right? Then if we talk about data, so we have create record, get record, update record, delete record. So this way, like by these three categories, I think you can remember different type of elements, those are available in the flow. But it is not important, like it is not a important question that is being asked in interview, but still you should remember. Okay, now there can be another question. So if interviewer already asked like types of flow, so in that we have one type, that is screen flow, and you already explained like if you want to have interactive screens where we can receive some input from user, so for that we can implement screen flow. So interviewer can ask like if you have created a screen flow, so at what place you can place your screen flow, right? How we can use screen flows. Okay, so you need to tell different ways from where we can call or we can initiate our screen flow. Okay, so as per my understanding, we can call screen flow through record page. It means like if you have created a screen flow, so you can place a screen flow on the particular object's record page, or maybe you can place it on app page, or you can place it on home page. So in our bootcamp, when I explained you screen flow scenario, so we already did these implementations. So if you are not aware, so you need to just go back and you need to watch like how we can do this. Okay, so this was the first, like three types of pages we have: record page, app page, and home page. And on any page we can place particular screen flow. Now here you need to remember, like if you want to receive record ID, so that flow should be placed on record page. If you don't want any record ID, in that case your flow can be placed either on app page or it can be placed on home page. Okay, so I hope you agree with my answer. Now I am going to explain another place where you can place your screen flow. So in Salesforce we can create sites, those are known as experience sites, or earlier it was no like it is called as like communities. Okay, so if you search on internet, so there you will find name communities as well, but nowadays these communities are known as experience site, and for that we have a cloud which is known as experience cloud. So if you have created experience site, and on that experience site if you want to expose screen flow, so that is also possible, right? And if you don't know about experience site, so you need to explore about that, then only you will be able to utilize your screen flow there. Then other than this, if you want to launch your screen flow through quick action, so we can create global quick action, we can create object specific quick actions, and from there we can launch our screen flows. Okay, so these are some major places where generally we place our screen flows so that we can start its execution. Okay, so next is, if you know about record triggered flow, so I think you will be able to explain like we have record triggered flow which runs whenever we create, update, and delete any record, right? So there can be one question: can we create a flow which will run on all the events like create, update, and delete all together? Okay, so we want to create a record triggered flow which should run on insert, update, and delete. So your answer should be no. So we can create a flow which can run on create and update, right? Two operations. But we cannot create a record triggered flow which will run on all three options like insert, update, and delete. So for insert and update, we can create one flow, but for delete, we need to create another flow, separate flow, right? So these two flows will be fulfilling that requirement. Okay, so there is, I can see in the chat there is one question, but I think it is not related to flow. So I will take that question, but after completion of all the questions that I have already prepared for you. Okay, so I don't want to break the sequence. So moving forward, right? So if you face a question related to schedule triggered flow, so first of all you need to explain what schedule triggered flow is. So you can compare schedule triggered flow with record triggered flow. You can compare schedule triggered flow with record triggered flow. So in record triggered flow, it runs on record creation, updation and deletion, right? But if you're not doing any operation, like you are not doing any of the operation, insert, update and delete, still you want to perform some automation on a particular record. So in that case, what you can do, you can implement a schedule triggered flow. Okay, and schedule triggered flow will runs on certain frequency and at particular time. Like you schedule it for daily. So daily at what time? So generally, if I relate one example with this schedule triggered flow, so we generally use mobile data in our mobile phones, and like if I talk about India, so in India, if we are using any mobile data plan, so it automatically refreshes every day. So let's say I have a limit for 1 GB daily, and I have utilized that limit in particular day. So at midnight 12, my data will be refreshed automatically, and for next day I will be having 1 GB data that I can use next day. So that is basically a scheduled operation that runs every day at 12. So this way you can relate real life examples as well. Okay, so if you are not able to relate your answer with Salesforce, so you can pick any real world example which is like working in similar to that particular feature. Okay, so moving on to the next question. So it can be related to debugging of a flow. So interviewer can ask, like, if you encounter a problem in your flow is failing, you have implemented, but you activated as well, but it is not working up to the mark. So how you will be able to solve that problem? So your answer should be like before activation, developer should have done the debugging of that particular flow, right? So if not, and if you get a chance to debug that particular flow, so what you can do, in flow builder there is a button available which is known as debug. So if you click on that debug button, so step by step all the like outcome will be available in the debug as a log, and you can see what element is performing, like what element is running successfully and which element is not working successfully. So all the error will be available there, and basis on that particular error, you can just fix that particular flow. So in your answer, like you can say, if we have created a flow, so before activating that, we should debug that particular flow. Even if we know like we have implemented flow correctly, still for testing purpose, first we need to debug the flow, and then we can activate it, and then we can test it with the help of particular record, right? So this should be your answer. Next question can be like, can you tell us about version control in flow? What do you understand by version control in flow? Why it is useful in flows, right? So you can say, suppose I have created a flow. So here you can take an example. So for example, I have created a record triggered flow. Like if account is created, so a related context should be created automatically. Okay, so I created the flow, it is working fine. I activated as well that particular flow. Now later on the requirement changes. So requirement says, if you are creating any account record, and on account record, if active field is true, yes, if it is having yes, then only context should be created related to that account. Okay, so in that case, what you need to do, you just need to clone your existing flow that is already in place. And if you clone that flow, if you create a new flow, so you won't be creating a separate flow, net new flow, you won't be creating. Instead, you will be creating its new version. Okay, so what is the benefit of creating the new version? So let's say if you created a version 2 where you applied that active check, so only those accounts where active is yes, related context will be created. Okay, so version 2 you created, you activated it as well. Now later business again change the requirement. Like we need to roll back and we want the existing implementation in place. So what you can do, you can deactivate your version 2 and you can immediately activate your version 1. So this is the benefit of version control in Flow. So with the help of this explanation, I think you got to know how you can explain your answer to the interviewer. So I took example as well, it related it with the business scenario, and explained you the reason why we have versioning in Flow. So you can also add, like if we don't want to create version, so we can create a net new flow as well. In that case, we will be having two separate flows. But versioning is better so that we can anytime roll back and we can see the previous implementations as well. Also, you can add one thing, like if we have more than one versions of particular flow, so at a time only one version can be activated. Okay, so I hope with these questions you are able to understand how you can answer the questions. Okay, so I can see now there are lots of questions in the chat. So I'm trying to see if there is any question which is related to flow. I don't see this. They are related to different things. Okay, so let me cover few more questions. Okay, so I can see one question. So there is one question, do we get questions on workflow rule and process builder in admin certification? Can see them in some practice tests. Yeah, so in practice tests, they are available because recently they are deprecated. So it would be good to have the basic overview of these topics. So on my YouTube channel, you will find both the playlist, workflow rule and process builder. So just go through those playlists so that you can understand the basics of these concepts, right? Yes, Himank, in case of version control, previous version would be available there. It won't be deleted. So Sudhir is asking, can we call triggers from flow? So if you are performing any DML operation like record creation, updation and deletion, then your trigger will be called automatically. So trigger we don't call, they initiates automatically. But if you want to call Apex, so that is possible. Through flow we can call Apex. Yes, we can pass data to LWC and we can receive from LWC as well. Okay, so I'm moving ahead with another questions. So next question is, can we use lightning component in ScreenFlow? So answer will be yes. We can use lightning components in ScreenFlow. Then if interviewer asks, can we call Apex class through flow? So your answer should be yes. And we can pass parameters to Apex class and we can receive returned values into flow through Apex class. Okay, but for that you need to use an annotation, that is @invocable method. So if you want to call Apex method in your flow, so that Apex method should be annotated with @invocable annotation, right? So that is important. Then one more question that can come in front of you. So it is related to subflow. So interviewer can ask, can we implement subflow concept in flows? So your answer should be yes. In screen flow, like if you have more than one screen flows, so you can call one screen flow into another, right? So subflow option is available there. And if you have record triggered flow and auto launch flow, so record triggered flow can call auto launch flow as subflow, right? So these two scenarios you can explain as the answer to this question. Okay, so I hope these question and answers are making sense to you. And if you go through this video anytime whenever you are preparing for the interview, so all these questions are very much important and it will help you to prepare for interview. Then interviewer can ask, like, can you tell us some actions that we can done with the help of flow? So actions means you can post to chatter some message through flow. You can send emails through email action, or you can send it through email alert. So there are two options available. You can use email action or you can use email alert, right? So on my channel, like if you go through the flow scenarios playlist, so all these are already implemented. You can go and watch and you can learn like how they actually works. Then if you want to send custom notification, that is possible through flow as an action. If you want to call subflow, that is also possible as an action. If you want to call Apex class, so that is also possible through action. If you want to call approval process, so that is also possible through action, right? So these are some basic actions which are frequently used in different solutions for particular business requirement. So you need to know all these actions can be performed with the help of flow. Okay, and beyond this, like if you want to share any record, that can be done through flow. If you want to create users, that is also possible. If you want to assign profiles and permission sets on record creation, so that is also possible. If you want to remove any permission set anytime if you do any changes in the user record, so that is also possible. So these are the actions that you can perform inside flow. So I think many actions we can perform with the help of flow, and it is becoming a powerful tool. Okay, so let me see the chat if I have any question. Yeah, so Himank is asking, sir, how can I improve my coding skill? And answer to this question is practice. If you do regular practice, then only you will be able to improve your coding skill, otherwise not. So you can relate coding with mathematics. If you do practice in mathematics, you will become good mathematician. Similarly, if you do regular practice, you will be improving your coding skills. So I hope most of you know I come from arts background and I managed to do master in technology, MTech, right? So I did this through practice only, right? I did lots of practice to learn programming, and you can see lots of things I learned beyond Salesforce. Also, I prior to Salesforce, I also learned lots of programming languages like C, C++, Java, PHP, Python. I did some coding in data structure as well, data structure through C, C++, right? So I did only practice, then only I overcome through this problem. So if you are related to any background, if you do practice, you will become expert. Degree doesn't play like major role. Degree doesn't play major role. Practice makes a skilled like a professional. So that's why if you see my LinkedIn, Sanjay Gupta Tech School LinkedIn, so you will see my mission is to make skilled IT professional, right? No matter from which background you come. So if you go through the proper plan and you do proper practice, so you will be becoming skilled professional minimum in 6 months, maximum in 12 months. That's why I already launched my limited seats bootcamp, and last week I shared a video regarding that. So right now I will be starting online batches from next week, and like I just want to share one information with you for Jaipur. I will be soon starting offline batches as well, right? And will be giving 100% scholarship to a few of the students. So I will be sharing this whole information in my 100th session, right? So let's not discuss much about this here. So I hope, Himank, your question is answered now. So Himank, there are lots of websites where you can find coding related questions. So Himank is asking, user can't be created directly from Flow. Himank, we can create users as well from Flow. So user is also an object. So if you want to create a record for particular object, so you can do that. So Subhashini, this is good question. So I think you already answered it, like undelete operation we can perform. And if you are working on large data set, I think trigger would be useful. And another thing, like in flows, we cannot implement map that we can do in trigger. So when complex situation arises, like you are having multiple loops, so in flow anyhow you need to implement those loops, but in trigger we have map concept so that we can apply there so that we can reduce complexity. And in trigger, like reusability is easy. In trigger, reusability is easy as compared to flow. And in complex flows, like on one screen, you won't be able to see all the elements. It is very difficult to understand complex flows, but it is very easy to understand complex code that is written in trigger and apex. Okay, Madan is asking difference between lightning flow and flow trigger. So lightning flow, I already explained, it is a product of Salesforce which has different types. Flow trigger is nothing. I think it is record triggered flow, right? If you are talking about record triggered flow, so that I already covered. If you go back to this video, you will be able to understand. Yes, Samram, I will be sharing information soon. So those who have already registered, they will be getting notification soon. Okay, moving on to the next question. Now, we have two things. If we are talking about record triggered flow, so interviewer can ask, we have two things. One is dollar record, one is dollar record, and another is dollar record underscore underscore prior, right? So these are two variables which are available in record triggered flow. One is dollar record and another one is dollar record underscore underscore prior. Okay, so if you know the trigger thing, so in trigger we have a trigger.old and trigger.new. So in trigger.old we store the old state of the record. In trigger.new, new state of that particular record is available. But the same record is available at both the places, in trigger.old as well as in trigger.new. If I relate that concept here in flow, so suppose you have updated a particular record. So whatever record you have updated, so that record will be giving you two states. One is old and one is new. So let's say if I update account record, on account I updated phone number. So earlier it was like 1111 and now it is 2222. So if I update phone field, so the old value will be available with dollar record underscore underscore prior, and the new value of that phone field will be available with dollar record. And this data which I used, so this I use for testing purpose, like demo purpose, these phone values, it is not related to anyone. Okay, so old values will be available in the dollar record underscore underscore prior, and the new values will be available in the dollar record. And make sure these two variables are available in case of record triggered flow only. In other flows, you will find dollar record only because you are not doing any update operations there. Okay, so it is an important question that everybody should know. Now, next question, like what happens when flow fails? Suppose you implemented a flow, you debugged it, it was working fine, you activated, you tested, it was working fine, but due to some data error, it failed. Okay, so for example, if you applied get record element, you tried to get some data and in flow, you didn't apply null check. So what will happen when you tested, maybe data was available, but when someone else is using that flow, so data is not available. So in that case, what will happen? Your flow will fail because you didn't apply null check. So how you can overcome through these kind of scenarios? So how you can answer this question to interviewers? So you will say in flow, like in Salesforce, if you go to the setup, so we can search an option, failed flow interviews. So it comes with the name paused and failed flow interviews. So if you pause any flow or any flow is failed, so those both are tracked. So if you search that option, you need to go for the failed flow interviews, and there you will see the list of their records, like which flow failed and which version failed. So from there, if you open that particular record, so you will see like what actual errors came there, and basis on those errors, you will be able to fix your problem. This is one thing. Second is like who was the user who last modified that flow. So that user will be receiving an email like whenever your flow is failing, so that user will be receiving the email. So through that also you can see like, but if you have large team, so you might not know like who received the email. So now the solution to this problem is like, in setup you can search apex app exception email. So there you can just put your email, and whenever flow will be failing, so your email will be receiving those failed emails, right? But the first option, paused and failed flow interviews, that is the best thing. With the help of that, you will be able to see the list of all failed interviews. Okay. Now moving on to the next question. So next question is again related to record triggered flow. So in record triggered flow, we have two options. One is fast field update, and second is actions and related record. Okay. So interviewer can ask like, can you explain the difference between these two options? Like if you are creating a record triggered flow, so how you will choose which way to go? So you can say like, if we are creating, updating any record, and on that particular record, if you want to do some automation on that same record through which our flow will be triggered, so in that case we'll go with fast field update, right? In that case we'll go with fast field update. But if we want to perform any action like send notification, send email, or if we want to perform any operation on any related record, so in that case what we'll do, we'll pick actions and related records. Okay. So now interviewer may ask like, can you relate it with trigger? Okay. So yeah, you can say yes, absolutely. So in trigger we have before and after concept. So fast field update is similar to before, right? Before your record is saved to the database. So before your record is saved to the database, before that if you want to perform any operation, so you can choose fast field update in flow, and in trigger we can use before events. And when record is saved, and if you want to choose you are choosing actions and related records, so that is similar to after update or after event. It would be better answer, right? So this way I hope you will be able to answer the flow related situation, and you can relate it with the trigger as well. Okay. So I hope these question and answers are helping you to prepare like how we can answer our questions in the interview. So now I'm just checking this chat if I get any relevant questions, so I will be picking that. So Sumuk is asking, as a fresher, which concept should be clear when going for interview after Apex coding? I would say just refer to the bootcamp. All the bootcamp sessions should be clear to you, right? All those sessions covers all the basic things. So someone is asking about restriction rule and scoping rule. I think those are already discussed. Okay, I don't see any relevant question related to flow now. Okay, moving on to the next thing. So next question can be like, can records be shared with users through flow? So your answer should be yes. We can share records with users through flow, right? So for example, if you want to share account records, so in flow, you can create a record, and that record should be related to account share object. So if you want to share account record, so you will be searching account share object, and you need to create that record, account share record, and you need to populate the account ID and the user ID with which you want to share that particular record. Okay. So if you have applied OWD on particular object and you want to share records manually, or like you can say through automation, so flow can be the best solution for that. So one more thing, there is one feature known as Flow Trigger Explorer. So interviewer can ask, can you tell me the use of Flow Trigger Explorer with the help of any scenario? So you can say if we have created more than one flows on particular object, and that too record triggered flow. Okay. And Salesforce gives us leverage, like if you have more than one flows created on particular object, so you can decide the sequence. You can decide the sequence, like which flow will be executing first, which will execute second, which will execute third, right? So if you want to set that sequence, so for that purpose we can use flow trigger explorer. Okay. And we can do it for all three types of flows, like the flows those are created for those, like whenever record is inserted, second whenever record is updated, third whenever record is deleted. So three options are available, and basis on those we can just arrange all our flows, like in which order they will be executing, and that is very much important. So this feature is available with trigger as well. In trigger, basically we call the methods one after another, so that decide the sequence, right? So for that we use flow trigger explorer. Okay, so one more question. In record triggered flow, we have two paths. One is run immediately, and another one is run asynchronously. So interviewer can say, like, can you elaborate and tell us the uses of these two paths? So you can say we have two things. One is synchronous and one is asynchronous. So if you want to run certain operations synchronously, like whenever record is created, and on record creation, if you want to run certain operation that runs synchronously immediately, if you want to perform that operation, so you can go with the run immediately path. But let's say you want to run some automation in the background that is taking lots of time, or that automation may want some resource to be available. So instead of implementing that as immediate action, so what you can do, you can create a separate path, and that separate path will be running asynchronously. Okay. So we can have these two paths in record triggered flow, and like whatever operations you have defined in run immediately, that will run immediately, and whatever operations you have defined in run asynchronously, so that will run whenever resources are available, or like in the background. Okay, next is for scheduled triggered flow. If you want to see like what all flows you have scheduled, so from where we can see. So your answer can be like in setup, we can search about scheduled jobs. So through scheduled jobs, we'll be able to search that, like what flows we have already scheduled. Okay, so I'm just going to pick last question. It says, can we deactivate flow anytime? So answer will be yes, we can deactivate flow anytime. And if we deactivate, so that automation will stop. And versioning we already discussed, if we have lots of versions, so anytime we can activate, deactivate any version as per the requirement. So these were some important questions that interviewer can ask related to flow. So you can just go through those. And if you want to see the question and answers in a video, like where question and answer both are available. So if you go to studysalesforce.com or on YouTube, so there you will find a playlist which is related to like interview question and answer. So you can just go through that as well. So Vishnu is asking, how can you debug flows in Flow Builder? So in Flow Builder, Vishnu, there is a button. If you click on that button, so through that you will be able to control. So Vishnu, in Flow, I think we cannot, I haven't controlled recursion. And instead saying this, I would say, I have never encountered that kind of scenario. But this is a good question. So maybe if you want to control the recursion, so similar to trigger, what we do, you need to have a check, like whether it is running for the first time or it is iterating. So basis on that, you can also control recursion in Flow. Sumukh is asking which governor limit is not reset between this I need to check. Okay, so yeah, Sumukh, I will check that. I think there is some issue in the backend, so I will resolve that study Salesforce issue. Okay, anything else that you guys want to ask? I think all flow related questions I already answered. If I still missed, you can ask your question again. Okay, so I think there are no more questions. So tomorrow I will be having another session for mock interview. So tomorrow I will be discussing Apex related question. So if you can prepare those things in advance, so it will be fruitful. You can ask lots of questions. So tomorrow we'll discuss Apex trigger and all, and a day after tomorrow we'll be discussing Lightning component. So today is 97th session. So we'll be having three more sessions in this bootcamp. So like on 100th session, I will end this bootcamp, and I hope you are enjoying all the sessions, those who are following. So other than this, like Omni Studio bootcamp will also end maybe this week or next week. So I think these two bootcamps are most successful bootcamp that I have done so far. So I am planning another bootcamps as well. So keep an eye on those. I will be sharing enough information with you. Okay, so with this note, I take your leave. We'll be connecting again same time tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll be discussing Apex trigger related question and answers. Okay, thank you so much for joining this session live, and those who are watching the recording, thanks to you as well. See you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.